Water pooled about my throat as I stared up into the grey Huffington sky. I couldn't think, couldn't move. I could only listen to the contrabass's soft, mournful melody as hell exploded around me. A pony in dark green combat armor climbed up to the lip of the hole I was in. I couldn't tell if it was a mare or stallion. I could see the water dripping slowly from the barrels of the assault rifles on their battle saddle. Saw the flare of light reflecting off the watery sheen. Saw the jaw tightening on the bit in their mouth. Saw a blue mare tackle him from the side and knock him back. Bluebell looked down at me, her lips moving silently as she glared down at me. Then I saw a spray of red erupt out of the side of her chest as a bullet punched clean through. Her eyes went wide as she fell to her knees and the second spray went out. A third. The pony she'd pushed aside slowly twisted around towards her. There was one more explosion. Me. I lunged out of the water, my sword slipping smoothly into my magic's grip as it speared up through the armored collar of the pony's combat balding and emerged out the far side. I twisted the blade around completely and took their head off. I don't know what I was screaming now. All I could hear was Octavia's music, a piece from her peace concert if I remembered correctly. I scrambled up the muck and rubble to the lip where Bluebell lay dying, bleeding out bright streamers of red. Her bar hadn't disappeared. Not yet. But there were 3 ponies approaching through the smoke, dust and rain, aiming to change that. I leapt upon the closest before she could react. Her assault rifles chattered away to either side as I grabbed her battle saddle bridle with my thumbs and stared right into her horrified eyes. Then I stamped vigilance to the side of her skull and blew her brains out. She didn't even completely fall as I whirled towards the next. The unicorn was bringing an AM rifle to bear, but at this point I wasn't thinking that far anymore. I charged straight at the unicorn as she tried to use her remaining seconds to kill me. But I lifted a glob of muck and threw it in her face as she fired. I felt a warm, wet sensation in my side and turned to look at the third trying to pump every bullet into me. There was no pain as he emptied his magazine into my barding. I slipped into SATS and saw the look of horror etched on his face. 3 shots, executed. I watched as that look of horror was transformed into ground meat. I couldn't hear anything but the music, could only feel water and blood and rage. I turned back to the unicorn as she tore her helmet off and I could see her crimson gaze. I charged towards her as she brought the AM rifle tip up. Busted Heart had been right. This wasn't a weapon for fighting ponies. It was slow and heavy. And right now I moved at the speed of death. Her lips moved soundlessly as I closed the distance. She wasn't going to be able to bring the weapon up in time. It didn't even look like she was trying. The sword glittered in front of me as I charged. She raised her hoofs, her eyes wide. Then I plunged the sword straight into her chest up to the hilt. My forelegs grabbed her, ready for a second stab. And a third if I needed. My ears crackled and the music disappeared. I could hear the groan of steel and the chatter of bullets and the whoosh of a flamer somewhere.
I give up,
the unicorn murmured in my ear. I turned to her, watching the blood flowing out of her mouth. I could feel the blade humming in my magical grasp as I slowly pulled it free.
Get down on the ground,
bellowed the Pegasus in the sleeker, fancier-looking Thunderhead armor. 5 of them, 4 on the ground and 1 in the air. Only 5? Then I was on him, racing the short distance separating us as if I were an SATS, and I grabbed the respirator tubes running to his muzzle. My twisting hands flipped him over as he started firing wildly. The sword flashed in the lightning, glistening in the light. It entered his crotch and moved till it reached his throat in one terrific slash. Then I heaved him, his bloody viscera erupting from the split armor over the face of the second Pegasus. I saw light, felt heat, moved. My hoofs raced towards the source of those crimson beams. So hot, very hot. I imagined myself bursting into flame, exploding from all the rage and hate inside me. I imagined every one of these enclave to be the camp director. I was screaming something. The words didn't matter anymore as I closed the distance like I'd taken a hit of flash. Out came duty and sacrifice. 4 shots in slow motion chewed through the fancy visor. The 5th shot blew a red fountain of chunks as his beam rifles went dark. One of the Pegasi took to the air. I leapt up, my mechanical fingers grabbing that scorpion tail as we lifted higher and higher into the flashing sky. This was Lighthoofs, the sneaky son of a mule who had seen this atrocity and not destroyed it. Who had used it. Who had killed other Pegasi just to make his disease work on his own kind. Glory had once mentioned how tough Pegasi wings were. My sword was tougher. I stabbed it through the armor covering and the mare inside screamed. With all the strength I could manage in my horn, I ripped the blade down completely through her wing and we tumbled together end over end. The airborne Pegasus was close. Too close. Perhaps he didn't notice her falling wing. Perhaps he was just unlucky. He blasted me with glowing, disintegrating energy, the magic eating into my armor. If I'd been flesh and blood, perhaps I would have died then, transformed into glowing slob. I wasn't flesh and blood. I was hatred and pain in pony shape. I leapt the distance and wrapped my forehoofs around his neck. He flipped almost completely upside down, his energy cannons blasting. This close, I could almost imagine I could see his eyes through his visor. I had no idea how far up we were. I could hear shouting, but then I could hear screaming too. Could hear thunder. Could hear everything except my own heart. Within, I was silent. My fingers gripped his helmet as he shook and shot wildly. My other hoof beat at his face again and again with all the force I could muster. There was a crack, a pop, and then the left side of the visor popped free. I stared into a white-green eye, saw 2 pinpricks of red reflected in it. My horn managed 3 magical bullets before it burned out. The Pegasus's wings went limp and we tumbled down into the rain and darkness. The bones broke my fall, snapping and clattering as they parted beneath me to deposit me on the muddy ground. I should have stayed down. I should have. I wasn't done yet. I ignored the flashing lights, the warnings that I was crippled and needed to stay down. I pulled myself to my hoofs, walked towards the one-winged Pegasus that was trying to turn me to ash even as I approached. I might not have had a working horn, but I had fingers. And I had bones. The mare moved so slowly. Too slowly. I plucked one of the scattered bones, a rib by the looks of it, and sprang upon her. Rover was right. Fingers were better. Fingers of one hoof seized her armor, her beam rifle flashing past me by inches. I could feel the warmth of the magic on my hide. Fingers of my other hoof drove the broken end of the rib through the hole of the severed wing. It didn't kill her. That was okay. I had another. And another. And another. When she stopped firing, I rose and looked at the others through the rain. The last Pegasus had gotten clear of the corpses I'd thrown in her face. She saw me running at her, took to the air, flying for her life. She almost made it. My hand scraped her stinger tail and we were aloft. She looked down at me and flew by one of the towers with its rusty turret still pointing guns at the building below. I supposed she intended to scrape me off. No pony was scraping me anywhere. My body slammed into the rusty tower, but I had no lungs to crush or puncture and no heart to falter. My rear legs gripped the rusty rails and my fingers locked down on the rail. Suddenly, the Pegasus went from accelerating forward to a dead stop, snapping like a rubber band. Then she was going backwards once more as I heaved and kicked off the tower. We flipped end over end as we fell, her wings struggling for purchase with my massive weight attached. We landed square on the curved roof and smashed through the rusty metal plating. Inside, bunk beds stacked 5 high shadowed beneath us. Bones, hide, and rags snapped and tore as dust filled the air. The Pegasus pulled herself to her hoofs, turning to face me as I rose and started forward. Had she run, had she fled, she might have gotten away in those seconds. Not anymore. The Gatling beam guns flashed, each shot seemed to take a minute as I charged. My body was in agony. So what? I was always in agony. My life was agony. I knew exactly how Deus must have felt when he was dropped on those zebras. Hurt, violated, angry. Nothing would stop him. Nothing would stop me now. I tackled her neck and drove her into the stack of bunk beds behind her. The structure collapsed upon us, yet I still didn't stop. My rear legs tore up the ground as I pushed forward. I wanted her to break, wanted my body to fail, wanted this whole world to shatter. I wanted to kill in the worst way possible. We moved through the avalanching wood and bone and finally ran out of the building. The thin metal wall ripped through with a shriek and dumped us back in the mud. Her fancy Gatling weapons were nothing against my rage. As I smashed her into a tangle of razor wire, both her weapons finally sparked and popped and went dark as she reclined against it. Her wings beat frantically. She wasn't going anywhere.